Hello and welcome back to A Thorny Pot. In this video I'm going to show you how to grow turnips. They're great in a stew and they go well in soups. They don't take up a lot of space and their harvesting period is quite long, and they only take around 10 weeks to grow. Let's do it. I'm going to be sowing my turnips in cell trays. I find it's easier for transplanting later and I can grow a larger amount in a smaller space. I also make my own mix, which is 50-50 compost and topsoil. The topsoil holds onto moisture, whereas the compost has lots of nutrients. Spread it over your cell tray and poke it down into the holes. Don't press it down too firmly though, as the seedlings have a better time growing if it's left a little fluffy. While you're pressing down gently, if there are any air holes, just top it up with a little more of the mix, like you can see here. Now we want to make sure this tray is nice and moist and damp. That'll help the seedlings to germinate, and it also means that we need to water less later. There are two ways of doing this. The first is to chuck it in a big tray and fill with some water. That'll then saturate over about 10 to 15 minutes. The easiest way, in which we'll all probably do, is just water the tray a few times. These are the turnips I'm growing. They're Milan purple top, very tasty, and they're quick to grow. Also got a couple of labels so I can remember what's where. You notice on my labels I've got the number 19, that's the week of the year that they're sown. I find it easier to work out how long they've been growing if I use a number rather than a date. So I'm going to be sowing around 4 to 5 seeds per cell, and these are going to be multi-sown, so I'm not going to thin them later. The benefit of multi-sowing is that you can grow more in one space, and once you harvest the larger roots, it then gives more space for the smaller ones to then grow and establish. It extends the harvesting period. Okay, I'm just going to sow 4 to 5 in each cell there. And then I'm going to cover with a little bit of soil, after folding that and putting that away, obviously. Come on. Cool. Put that away safe for next year. They'll keep for a few years, and pop my labels in. And now I'm going to cover with a little bit of more of the mix, just to cover the seeds, and gently press that down. You should notice as you press it down that the soil underneath is damp. We know then that it's fully saturated. Give it another water as well. It's going to feel like you're watering too much, but this will really give them a kickstart. Chuck them in I'm putting them in a grow house, but a hot windowsill will be fine, or a cold frame. Now that all happened in week 1. Coming back at the start of week 2, we can see that they've already germinated, and we can see easily 2 or 3 per cell. And the start of week 3, we can see that they're starting to become a little leggy as they're stretching for the light. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep turning this tray every few days. I'm going to raise it up to the topmost tray in my grow house. They're ready to transplant at week 4, and they're growing on nicely. So pick yourself a spot in the garden. I'm going to go right next to these parsnips here, and I'm going to have some pumpkins around there. So here is good. They don't take up a lot of space. Maybe give them half a metre to a metre if you're going to do a couple of rows. So make sure it's nice and fluffy, and get rid of anything big. I had some bark there that a cat has been kicking about. And if your soil is very dry, it might be worth just giving it a quick water. This will hold the soil together and it will make for easier transplanting. And there's a little cheeky foot shot for you. This is a new bed, however if it's an old one just top it up with a couple of handfuls of compost. That will act as a mulch as well, which will keep the soil underneath from drying out too quickly. Okay, grab your cell tray and using a pencil, poke out the cell from the module using the hole in the bottom. And just ease it out and just pop it to one side for now. You don't need to take all of the seedlings. Take the strongest and as many as you plan on growing on, and the smallest can go back into the compost heap. Or leave them in the tray to grow on if you like. Now what you're looking out for is when you poke it out, you'll see that the roots are starting to push down and reveal at the bottom. This is about right. Too long and they'll start to loop around and they won't transplant as well. Now you want to space these out a couple of inches apart. Poke a dibber or a tool handle down into the ground to make a hole which is the same depth as the cell. The idea is that the pod will then just drop straight down into the hole, which will limit root disturbance, which is exactly what we want. Place your fingers on either side and just gently push it down there into the soil. And do that for the whole row. And I'm going to do a couple of rows here with just a couple in the middle just to use them up. And there we go. Now I'm going to give that another water. Any transplanted plant needs a good water for the next few days. It'll help it establish new roots and will stop it drying out because their roots are still quite shallow. So when we come back on week 5, we can see that they're growing very well. They're looking very happy, the leaves are nice and strong and they've all survived, they're all healthy. Keep them watered to stop them drying out. And week 6 we can see they're filling up their space. There's very little space now between the plants. It means we've got the spacing right. And they're nice and healthy. Week 7 shows that the roots are starting to show. You can just see in there, you can see they're just starting to push out a little. We're getting there. And week 8, the roots really are growing now. You can see they're poking out the distinctive purpley colour of these Milan purple. Week 9, the roots are still growing and they're starting to take shape. We're not far away now from harvesting these. Make sure you weed between the plants as well. And week 10, they're ready to harvest, only 10 weeks. And there we go, we can see. So what we're going to do, we're going to harvest the larger roots from the clumps where the root is ready to harvest. Now we take it at the base and twist it out. We don't pull it out. By pulling it will damage the other plants in that clump. We want them to carry on growing for the next couple of weeks, so we twist them out and remove just the largest of the roots. Now I like to give you at least one recipe of what you can cook with the produce you grow, and this is a very simple recipe for roasted turnip and honeyed carrot soup. First, chuck an oven on mid to high kind of temperature and grab yourself a deep baking tray, ideally something that is non-stick. Pop some oil or butter in there and quarter up an onion and pop that in the tray. Grab something to hold these cut up roots, we're going to give them a wash in a minute, and then just quarter or slice the turnips and pop them in there just for a moment. I'm going to do that for all of them. This recipe will make around 3 or 4 portions of soup, so obviously you can adapt it based on how many you're cooking for. I've also got a couple of carrots here which I've harvested, which is lucky timing, and I'm just going to slice those up. You can change any of the vegetables in this if you wish, but I like the carrots because they add sweetness. Just Just do that for 3 or 4 carrots. Give that a quick wash. And before I forget, we also need a garlic. Just chop the ends off of that and crush it with the flat end of your knife. That will release the skin, which will then just peel away. Now with all of this, it's all going to go into the soup maker, which has a blend on it, so we don't need to chop anything up finely. Pop that in the tray with the onion. Give it a shake to get the oil over it. It'll stop it sticking to the bottom of the tray. And then grab yourself a fork and just add a little bit of honey. Drizzle that just over there and give that another shake just to cover it all nicely. Pop it in the oven for around 20 minutes. Okay, and it looks like that. Just lightly roasted. I'm also going to grab a few potatoes that I've grown. Just going to chop these up and put them in the soup maker. And I'm going to move the mixture across too. Now, by adding the potatoes at this stage, they'll be a bit chunky when it comes out of the soup maker. If you wanted it smooth, you would add them to the tin when you roast it all. Add a sprinkle of pepper and a couple of pinches of salt. And I'm also going to add some paprika as well. Now add a stock cube. This is a vegetable stock cube. And then I'm going to add water up to the first line on my soup maker, but you want a couple of cups of water per person, per portion. I'm going to put that on the smooth mode and go. That will take about 19 minutes. Okay, 19 minutes later, steaming. That's going to go and wash. And this is made my lunch and a couple of lunches that I can freeze for another day. I'm going to give that a taste test as well. Like I say, you can add, remove, tweak this recipe. This is very simple. I like it creamy, and I'm going to have this with some nice bread, but if you were having it on your own, you'd probably maybe add something with maybe a little bit more flavour. But it's a very, very simple warming soup, and I'm just going to portion that off for a few lunches too. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun to make. If you did enjoy it, please give us a like and consider subscribing us. It really helps me out. If you have any recipes which use turnips or any tips for growing them, please chuck them down in the comments so we can all learn and grow together. And here's a few other videos that you may be interested in too. Thank you and happy growing.